has been from the get-go, a member of CANDO. She participated in the Autism Commission along with Ed Steinberg, is the specialist on autism at Colorado Department of Education, and has just been a marvelous colleague, collaborator as we've proceeded with all of these efforts. So, Melinda.
Thanks, Corey. And we're going to really shift gears here because we're not here to talk about mental health at all. We're going to talk about the Department of Education and what we've been doing to further the recommendations from the Autism Commission. And so we like to use this forum to kind of come back and say, here's what we are still working towards these recommendations, that we are still trying to put things in place. And so we've got a project that we've been working on to meet one of the recommendations. And as we were on the commission and as we were talking, we broke into different subcommittees, and one subcommittee was the education subcommittee. And in that, we started talking about the difficulties our educators had, because many of them either had no or very little experience working with children with autism and other developmental disabilities in their educator prep programs. And what could this commission look at in the education realm and help our teachers who are out there in the field working without a lot of support? I'm at the Department of Education in the Exceptional Student Services Unit, and we do a lot of training, but this is a big state, and there are a lot of teachers and speech therapists and school psychologists all working with this very complex population. And so one of the recommendations, recommendation 10, was that we have a statewide system in place for all educators and staff. And so that's a tall order when you're looking at a large state, and obviously could be very costly. What we looked at was really, we coming from the Department of Education here in Denver, going across the state and doing training is what has been done in the past and what we continue to do. But ideally, we would like our school districts to have some place in each region or someone in each region that they can go directly to and say, I need a training on this. I have a student that I could really use some help with. And so as we put our heads together to talk about how we would meet this, we had an opportunity in 2009 to be part of a statewide professional development grant. And in that grant, we proposed to building model sites in regions throughout the state that as just obviously is not going to take care of all of the need, but as a way of getting started. And it has been very successful. We've been doing it even though the 5-year grant has ended. The department has continued to fund this project. And so I've asked the people who are doing this project to come and give you a little idea of what they've been doing and how it's been working for each one of them. So I have Kate Loving, who came on to the department shortly after we started, and she is our coach extraordinaire in many of our sites and one of our leads in this project. The supervisor at the department is actually my colleague, Brooke Carson, but she couldn't be here today because she had a scheduling conflict. So, so I've asked Kate to come and really talk about what the program is, where we're at, where we're going with it. And then I've asked a couple of our teachers to come and talk about what it's meant for them as we have partnered with them. Emmy Steinberg was one of our very first teachers to volunteer to be a part of our project and been with us from the beginning. And then Julianne has been one of our newer members, and she's, Emmy has an elementary program and Julianne has a preschool program, and they'll talk a little bit about the program and what it's meant to have this project. And we hope to continue this, but we also know that there's still much more to do, so we're looking toward CANDO and this group to partner with us to continue working on this recommendation. So I'll turn it over to Kate.
Okay, I'll be brief here and then let our teachers talk because they have a lot of good information. And I'm going to be pulling up some documents we use Wikispaces to kind of house all our documents. So I'll be pulling those up, and there are also some handouts on the website. So just an overview of what COMASP is. It stands for Colorado Model Autism and Significant Support Needs Program. We're the A for autism. There's also a significant support needs and SSN piece to that. And we do some kind of cross work because a lot of the places that we're serve students with autism and other complex disabilities. But we really are the A for autism. And so the whole idea is to establish model autism programs around the state of Colorado. And we're looking at not just in Denver, but in all of our different regions. And I'll pull up a map. We use sort of the 8 regions of Colorado. And the intent is to establish model programs. And I'll talk about what model means when we talk about our quality indicators. But to establish model programs across the state of Colorado. So we know that it's easier for people to access supports in the metro region, but it's a lot different when we go to our different regions. We work in the Northwest and the Northeast and the Southeast, really rural areas that don't have access to a lot of training or support. So the model is really, it's a coaching model. It's not a consultation model. And the process really is, we accept an AU, a district, BOCES that comes along, and most of them have started in the elementary school. So the elementary, it's different in a few other places, but traditionally it's been our elementary folks that have applied and said, yes, we want this kind of support. And then what that entails is, it varies depending on location, but it's typically weekly coaching by a coach like myself. We have a few others around the state. I do several regions in the state, but it's weekly or a couple times a month, once a month face-to-face, and then maybe once a time Skyping. And it's really that coaching model where we use our quality indicators, which we'll show you in a bit, to look at what are the priorities, what are the things that people are doing really well, and what are some areas of need. And so we work on that. We target it every time I'm in a site, like our Jeffco sites. We kind of have priorities like, hey, we're going to work on circle time, or we're working on community-based instruction for our high school. And so the coaches provide a lot of model teaching, which is my favorite part of the job because I used to be a teacher, but now I get to go in and work with kids and model, and then have our teachers and our pairs and our SLPs then work with us, and we provide ongoing coaching and support. Which has been, that's, I think, what sets us apart from different models is that it's not consultative. We don't go in and say, hey, here's a list of things to do, but we go in, we develop priorities, and then we do it together, and we do it side by side so that teachers kind of know what it should look like. So the intent is to start with a middle school, and then the next year really look at our preschool or start with the middle school, then the next years we've sort of branched out into preschool, middle school, and then after that into our high school. And the intent was to have sort of the same feeder area. It hasn't really worked out that way, just for different purposes. But in a lot of our sites, we have a preschool, an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. I will say high school has been a little bit more challenging, which is hard for me because I'm very much a secondary person, but we're really working on expanding our services and really providing support to our high school transition programs. Let's see. One of the big benefits of having a model program is that now we are working in collaboration with universities and having student teachers and SLP interns, school psych interns come and are trained, and we're saying this is a great place to learn about services for students with autism. One of our sites in Jeffco Mortensen Elementary, which is at a model site, they've had a handful of student teachers come in and they're trained, and then now they're working in Jeffco and autism classrooms or special ed classrooms, and it's really building capacity across the district. We've had a few really successful school psychs come and train under some of our school psychs that have gone through the COMAS process, and so have been really successful and then secured jobs in the district or in the region because of the training and the learning that's happened through COMAS. So I'm going to pull up, I'll just show you where we are in the state, because we are around. A lot of us travel around the whole state because we don't want for things just to happen in the metro. So we have our metro sites are Jefferson County and then Adams 14, which is new. Julianne's from Jeffco, she'll talk about that. The southeast, we have Pueblo 70, Pikes Peak region, which Emmy is from, Cheyenne Mountain and Fountain, Fort Carson is our districts. This site up here, purple, like I had no idea this place really even existed until we started, but we started out in Pete's school district. You guys ever heard of Pete's, Colorado? Yeah, no one ever has. When Brooke and Melinda called and said, here's your new site, I was like, I had to look it up. But so we started out in Pete's, but now we've expanded to Akron and Yuma, and we've actually had some pretty good success out there because they've had nothing before. And so they really are appreciative in eating all this stuff up. And then the Northwest is one of my sites too, and we're in Buena Vista and Fairplay. And then in the West Central, we're in Telluride and Ouray, although we've had some staff changes. And so we're also working with Montrose. We did Melinda started out there with Ridgeway and North Telluride, all those North End little sites. So all of these places have active coaching going on, some weekly, some once a month. It looks a little bit different, but all pretty intensive coaching. Program becomes a model program, we start sending people there to look at, hey, this is good programming for students with autism, whether you're in general ed 100% of the time or in a center-based program, whether it's on the bus or in specials. We're really looking at wherever kids are, that's where we want to meet their needs. And so we're working with special ed teachers, general ed teachers, families. We have a huge family component, especially in our more rural areas. We're doing a ton of family training because those are the providers. They don't really have respite and behavioral services out in Pete's. There's like 15 people in the whole region. So there's no one really that that can provide those services. So we're really making sure that we're bringing families along. We had been accepting new sites, but we stopped accepting new sites. And really what we decided was to dig deeper in the places that we already are. So in Jeffco, we're at Irwin Preschool, Mortensen Elementary, O'Connell Middle School, and you guys, I'll show you the link to all these schools. So along some of those leaders, our autism specialists or teachers or SLPs that are showing lots of initiatives so that we're kind of coaching them to become the coaches too, so that when we step out that there's some sustainability within districts. So the next thing I'll pull up is just the sites too, to show you where we are in case they're in your regions and you want to send people there. We get calls all the time to see, oh, I have some kids with autism. I don't know what a good program looks like or how to use these visual supports or what sort of assessments. And so then we put them together with our sites. Mortensen is one of mine in Jeffco, and we are sending people there on a weekly basis. People have come from everywhere to see, oh, that's what general ed instruction looks like, or that's maybe what a nice FBA process looks like. Yes.
Are these all separated programs? You just mentioned general. Sorry, can you hear me now?
That's okay.
To interrupt, but are these all separate programs for children with autism, or are these in the general classroom? So that
all of it, wherever students are. So Ouray has, their students are all in general ed all the time because that's the nature of the students. They are a little higher on the end of the spectrum. We also work with, like Julianne's classroom is a preschool, and it is an intensive needs preschool for students with complex disabilities, including autism. There's always, and I'll pull up our indicators or what we use, there's always a general ed component looking at
like the autism center school.
No, and we have a couple autism centers, like Mortensen Elementary in Jeffco is an autism center base, but probably about half the work we do is in general ed. The majority of the classes that we're in are not autism center based. They are, if you have kids in general ed, we're there. If you have kids in resource room, we're there. If you have a center base and have really complex disabilities and are working on a less restrictive environment, we start there. So we're meeting the needs of wherever kids are. And a lot of them are SSN classrooms too, but we do a lot of work in the general ed.
So are the general ed teachers receiving that training too, is what the online audience wants?
They are. It really depends on the site. So for some places, we start out where the majority is really with our special ed teachers because we really are building sort of a foundation. There's some places, like Uray is one of them, where our work is pretty much with the general ed teacher. So they receive the coaching. We also, there's a training component to it. So we do lots of training, whole staff training. I work in Buena Vista, and so when I'm there, I meet on their plan time with the 5th grade team to talk about their guys in 5th grade with autism, or we do an after school, or I'm at the kindergarten team meeting. So it really is, it's nice because it's flexible and it's based on the needs of the school, so whatever the school makeup, but that's a big part, along with the parent component, the general ed piece. And I will say another piece is the whole school. I'm going to keep talking about Mortensen Elementary, but they do a fabulous job. There is the most inclusive school I've ever seen. Some of our schools were working on them, so in one of my middle school sites, we took their advisory period, so middle schools have advisory, it's like a homeroom, and the last couple of weeks we've been doing autism education, so we did some lessons tailored for students about their peers with autism, because they were seeing them in the classroom and working with them, but no one was really talking about, hey, why do our friends do things a little bit differently, or how can you be a nice peer support or a natural support to people with different needs. So that's a big piece of it, and it looks different at every school. Some schools are very inclusive, and some schools we're starting and kind of edging our way in, so it really just depends on where we're at. So I'll pull up quickly just our active sites, and then we'll look at the quality indicators. So these are all the, oops, that's not what I wanted, sorry. These are our active sites that we have. So we're in the Pikes Peak region, the West Central region, which is Uray, Telluride. Now we're working with Montrose. The Metro, we talked about Jeffco, and Adams 14 we added in. They have a preschool and elementary. The Southeast, which is Pueblo. The Northeast, so we started in Pete, Spedonauer, and Akron and Yuma, and that's the place where we're really reaching the other districts. So I do like every couple months I do a parent training, but we're also having people come from Lone Star, Sidney, Nebraska. We're actually allowing people over state lines, don't tell Melinda, but to come in from those super rural areas where they said if you didn't come here, we would have no access to this stuff. So just because we're at Akron, Yuma, and Pete's, we still offer training to the entire region, and some Skype stuff too with coaching. And then the Northwest region, we're in Buena Vista and Fairplay, and they're developing some really excellent programming too. So if you have any mountain people, we've got some really good stuff going in our Buena Vista region. They're about to be at model status too. So, and all of these, we have, I think there's, sorry, let me see. We have around 8 sites that are at model status, and so now I'm going to talk about what we use to get to like what is model, what is considered a model autism programming, and we use something called the autism quality indicators. So I'm going to pull these up now, and we have them for preschool, elementary, middle, high school, and transition, although transition and high school are lumped together. But this is a document that a lot of really smart people in the autism world put together. Rich Simpson from the University of Kansas, who is an autism guru, was our sort of advisor and really worked on what is best practice. It's all based on evidence-based practices. So we use this tool that we do as coaches. So there's always at least 2 coaches, at least twice a year, so that we're working on the inter-rater reliability for collecting this data. So we collect data, we go into the classroom, we collect data, and then we look at, okay, what are the things that are going really well and what are your priorities for coaching? And so the indicators are, oops. There's 6 domains. I don't know why this is. there we go. 6 domains that we're looking at, and it's IEPs and evaluations, which is an area that lots of people need some support in. We look at curriculum, instruction, and methodology, and we don't recommend specific curriculums, but we give examples, and it's all around evidence-based practices. Imagine lots of things with visual supports and good teaching, independent work, and large group, small group, one-on-one, all sort of environmental or instructional formats. We're looking at environment. The next one is review and monitoring of progress. So we're looking at, are you collecting data and monitoring process? That's the third domain. I'm going quick, but I just want you to have an overview. The next one is family involvement and support. So are we communicating with families on a regular basis? Are we providing supports? Are we linking our families with agencies, with our CCB, so they understand the waiver process? And that's been a huge area for our teachers that said, I didn't know any of this. And so as teachers, it's really our job to connect that. And so that's a huge push of ours, is making sure that our teachers are informed so that they can then work with their families. A lot of times we will come and talk about or partner with our CCBs and have family nights to come in and step by step, how do you apply for the waivers and things like that, and what services are available. And then the last couple are behavior. And so we're really looking at are using functional behavior assessments and then writing behavior intervention plans or developing really strong behavioral goals for people. This is another area that people struggle with, because I think we talk about like FBAs, but no one really knows what it is. So we're teaching the process of what does a nice FBA look like. And then the last piece is transition. Oops, I don't know why that's on there. Is transition. So we're looking at transition from grade to grade, transition from middle school to high school, but we're really looking at, does your district or BOCES have a process for planning for students across the age? So it's not like when on this document and we have this scoring piece, but it's really looking, it's a high bar to meet. We're not looking for good practice. We're looking for best practice model programming for students with autism wherever they are. So that's kind of our process that we use. And like I said, we do the indicators a couple times a year for our progress monitoring. After we do the indicators, and we set goals for our coaching sessions, and then we do coaching notes. So there's really a lot of accountability about who's doing what and how we move forward. So I think that's it about the whole process. And now I think Emmy's going to come and talk about, she is one of our fabulous teachers. She has a model autism program. Yes.
We have 2 questions.
Awesome. We'll do questions about the programming and then I'll hand it off to my teacher. Sounds great.
Okay, so Heather would like to know, since they have an inclusive model for social emotional support for EI 0 to 5, has LEAP Preschool 2 within that model?
Say that again.
Since they have an inclusive model for social emotional support for EI 0 to 5.
These people do. Uh-huh.
Has LEAP Preschool 2 within that model?
Okay. So you're asking about LEAP and what that looks like? Sounds like we actually, one of our sites in Adams 14, they are not at model yet, but they are well on their way, is using a LEAP model.
And Pyramid Plus 2 model. Pyramid Plus model. So.
Yes. So we work with whatever the district is using already. So we don't go in and say, you're going to use LEAP or teacher. We bring elements from good best practice all around, but we do, one of our sites really is following sort of that LEAP model if people were interested in looking at that. But yeah, we work in so like Julianne's classroom isn't, it's mostly students with pretty significant disabilities. We also have preschools that's that integrated model. So it just depends. And we work within the already existing structure. I don't know if that answered it.
I will let her respond.
Okay.
if it hasn't been answered.
Okay.
And then another question is, are there plans for the Summit area school district? It looks like there are a few people online from Summit County.
So the closest would be your Buena Vista. Right now, we're not accepting any new people. We have one district or BOCES that's represented in each of the areas. And so that, I believe, would be our Northwest district, which is the Mountain BOCES. we've got some questions about Summit. So we have opened that up to the wider Mountain BOCES where we do trainings. We extend it to everyone in the region. So Leadville, Breckenridge, they're all coming. So I would have them get in contact with the Mountain BOCES too, or send us an email if they feel like there's a need, because sometimes when we're out in the region, even if they're not part of it, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs, even if it's not a data site. So probably Buena Vista or Fairplay is their closest active sites. Okay, and Emmy's gonna need her PowerPoint. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
It's gonna take me just a second, sorry. You should be able to use these.
Hi, I'm Emmy Steinberg. I work for Cheyenne Mountain School District in Colorado Springs. We are located at Pinion Valley. We are a really small district, so we only have 5 elementary schools, 1 junior high, and 1 high school. So, and the preschool is all housed at Canyon School. So this model works really well for us because we've expanded into all those buildings, but all of our kids flow through that. So it's not like the bigger districts where you've got several programs and they're all kind of feeding into different schools. So the program works really well for us, and we are housed preschool through high school right now with the COMAS project. So, oops. Oh, there we go. So the idea of our program, it's in its 8th year of when the autism program was created. It was created because we kept having kids pop up in different elementary schools that needed a higher level of support than the resource lab could provide, but not as high of need support as the severe needs classroom would provide. So we started this program at Canyon Elementary, which is now where the preschool sites are closed, are housed, and we moved it to Pinion Valley 2 years later. The idea of the pull-out time, I really only do pull-out if there's huge gaps in academics and they can't access the curriculum. If they can access the general education curriculum with support, we do all of our support push-in. So we have we're capped at 12 students, but right now we have 6, and then I'm kind of supporting a few others who have exited the program. So we have my room, which has a sensory room built into it. And that's the first picture. And then we have my room, but it's much more of a resource type room. Most of the kids get most of their instruction in the general education classrooms with para support or special ed support in the classrooms. We do a lot of specific instruction in social and communication skills. We also offer a lot of sensory integration opportunities. So we've got several kids on sensory diets that they have planned breaks throughout their day, planned activities throughout their day, or access to that as needed throughout their day as well. We also are able to flood the general ed with support. Through this program, we started with the COMAS program our first year at Pinion Valley, which was perfect because then we were able to flood the general education teachers with a lot of support. We did a lot of training, a lot of book studies, a lot of going into the classroom and modeling. And that really helps to, because the first teachers with all of our kiddos are the general ed kiddos. They're the main teacher for them and they are responsible for them. We are just trying to flood support in to help. So we were one of the first of 2 programs chosen as a COMAS site. We were, our initial year started in January of 2010 and we achieved model status in May of 2012. During that time, we had weekly to 2 to 3 times a month coaching where they came in. We had specific goals. They guided us through those goals, and then we achieved model status. We expanded to the preschool at Canyon School, the junior high and high school in the following years. So these were our initial quality indicators in 2010. We were at a total of 61%. And those were kind of where we fell in the individual domains. And then these are our most recent, where we're at 100% in each domain. So now we basically get kind of consult with the COMAPS coaches. They come in 1 to 2 times a semester to check on our quality indicators. We go over the indicators 2 times a year to make sure we're still at model status. They look through IEPs, they look through evaluations. They're in the classroom making sure we are remaining at model status. The big things we implemented was a new social skills curriculum. Prior to, I was kind of using tidbits of everything depending on each kid. And we adopted the Michelle Garcia Winner's social thinking curriculum. For us, this has been amazing. I was trying to kind of build curriculum depending on the student, depending on the situation, but now it's kind of all there laid out to us. So our little kindergarten, first and second grade kids, we're putting through the iPower 2 and keeping calm. And that's just basically really talking about emotions, talking about thought bubbles, talking about people's, what you're thinking is related to what you're saying, and what people are thinking has to do with their emotions and feelings towards you. So the iPower is really looking at different emotions and making sure that you understand that your thoughts in turn look at how other people affect you. It affects other people and in turn affects their emotions and etc. The older kids were really move into the think social, the thinking about you, thinking about me, and the Superflex. Superflex is really good because it's comic based and they're superheroes, and they have evil characters that come and they have a glass man, and they have people and they learn strategies for when these people come up, and it's more about the emotions and the behavior side. So they learn strategies for different things. So that was our biggest social skill that we went through. The other thing that tied really nicely is we are a PBIS school and a responsive classroom school. We've just recently become responsive classroom in the middle of when we've been model site. We adopted responsive classroom, and that has gone huge in generalizing the social skills in the classroom and creating that community in the classroom. Every morning, each classroom starts with a morning meeting and a message from their teacher. So they have a letter from their teacher that they read, and they participate in a morning meeting. A morning meeting starts with a greeting. So there's many different kinds of greetings that community in the classroom. The next activity they do in their morning meeting is a kind of a fun social activity. So they're getting up, they're doing physical activities with their class, again, to build that community. So it's usually about 45 minutes of their morning is how they start this, and it just is great because it's social skills perfect. It fits with our social skills perfectly. We also do, they also develop rules and hopes and dreams in their classroom associated with responsive classroom. And then we also do whole school morning meetings where we break up class grade levels into morning meetings. And then once a quarter, we do what's called Wolf Pack. and we get one kid from each grade, and they're put in a group and they do an activity, which I have a kiddo this year who's a kindergartner. He's nonverbal. He was with this group completely on his own, and the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders were guiding him through the activity with no support. We were kind of put back. So it really builds that school-wide community where we have a lot of peer support help throughout the school. The other area we looked at was assessments and evaluations. These are the assessments and evaluations that we have available, autism specific, and that we use regularly. On triennial evaluations, we do, even if they have an autism diagnosis, we continue to do a GARS just to make sure we're still on the right track. We are also looking for comorbid diagnosis and make sure that that autism is still what we are looking at. So that's been our big thing also that we've really focused on. We didn't have as much of the social evaluations in place prior to being a model program. So we really had to look at and identify some appropriate social evaluations that we can look at, as well as sensory profiles. For kids who are on alternate and can't really access a lot of the traditional assessments, we do ABLES, and we follow through with that pretty regularly. I choose ABLES over VB-MAP. We've used both. I think for me, ABLES is kind of just more black and white. One of the things we used with the money we got in our first year was building it or buying the ABLES kit. So we do update and progress monitor based on ABLES for our kind of co-alt and alternate assessment kiddos. But we do a lot of other assessments in cognitive, adaptive, executive functioning, fine motor, academic, emotional, and behavior as well. But the main ones we do focus on are the above. Family involvement. Through the district, we have SEAC, which is monthly trainings available to the all the parents. So we do either lunch and learns, or we've had a few in the evening, and they target, there's some that target technology, there's some IEP 101s, there's some that are, we do one in April about all the programs available for summer. So if they don't qualify for something as far as summer services, we bring in a lot of the resources and say, here's everything that's available to you in the summer and good ideas for you in the summer. We also encourage our parents to go to conferences. We do, if a parent is interested in a conference, we fund it and we will send them to that. So that's a big parent training. If parents are interested in that, we do send that out in blasts on especially a lot of the free trainings that CDE provides or that are in our area. We do send blast emails to the parents about conferences coming up. We also will connect them with the CCB in our area or different resources available to them. We do different communication logs depending on the parent, the kid, and the needs. I've had some that are daily communication logs that explain pretty much to the minute what the child has done. We have some that are weekly, and then we have kind of an in-between where it may not need to be daily, but it needs to be more than once a week. So the minimum communication we do with our parents is a once a week, but more targeted to daily. The other area we really tried to do was visuals and pulling back some of that para support so that kids don't get dependent on it. So providing additional visual instead of having a person sit there. So these are all examples of just kind of general visuals that are in the classroom that we make sure every classroom has a visual schedule of some kind that's up and accurate for all of the kids. It's not benefiting just our kids, it's benefiting the whole classroom to know a visual schedule. We also have broken down activities like centers and daily rotations into visuals so that, again, it's kind of a universal visual, but drastically helps our kids. So these are kind of just different examples that you would find in a classroom just walking in that may have a kiddo in our program or may not. These are some individual visuals for our kids specifically that may need additional accommodations or supports. So these are what you would see for some of our kids specifically. We've got some different work schedules set up. We've got different individual calendars, individual schedules, first then boards, rings with just kind of visuals of that a teacher can come and most used is the one in the middle. It's the brown pyramid. We kind of put everything into one. So on that brown pyramid, it has the kids' token board. It has a visual of expected things that we're wanting them to do. Eyes on teacher, stay seated, voice off, good hands, so that we can just point to those things instead of sit down. It has 2 blank sides to where we can write anything in, like turn to page 54. Instead of having to say that 3 times, we just had provide the visual. A first then board and then a steps 1 through 4 board. So every kid has that in their desk and has access to that. The last was behavior supports. Prior to model program, we weren't really having behavior plans for the kids. We just kind of assumed since they were in the program, they needed that level of behavior support, and we are providing it through the program. Since then, every kid in the program has a behavior plan that's set up by an FBA. So we are looking for the function of the behaviors, and then we have a behavior plan set up so that everybody on the team, whether it's the general education teacher, the para, the specials teachers they're going to, knows the behaviors that they may see and the steps to replace those behaviors. So they have targeted goals, and the IEP for behavior and data collection is happening on those. So we're doing small group one-on-one and general education instruction to reinforce that. Also, the PBIS is supporting that just in general of having the behavior expectations in every place labeled, and the responsive classroom is helping support that as well, because that's where they're building the classroom rules and their hopes and dreams in the classroom together as a whole. So that's kind of any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Huh?
So let's go to the funding for this. Is this your school that's funding this, or are you getting a grant? Or
We participated with the COMAPs, and we did get a certain amount of funding for the first couple of years. So our first year, they funded the ABLES kit.
Okay.
And then the second year, they bought a lot of the social skill curriculum. They bought our social skill curriculum. And then they've bought some different training things that we've done general ed wise. So COMAS had a grant where they were funding for the first few years. Our district is good support as well, and if we've needed anything, they've been able to provide that.
Okay, and then I also have, when you were talking about the functional behavior plan, how do you sit down with the general ed people to talk about this? I mean, how do you require that they're going to be listening to this? And
absolutely. We sit down with them when we're making it, so that they are part of the team making the plan, so that they are able to enforce the plan. So they're sitting down and we're really talking about, is this feasible in the classroom? And we're not just giving them a plan saying, here, follow this. This is what you need to do. So we are sitting down. It is a team meeting between myself, the special education teacher, the general education teacher, and either a behavior support person within the district or a school psychologist. And we are sitting down building that year after year with the people. So we do build and tweak the plans year to year depending on their general education teacher.
Okay, so if somebody was wanting to do this in their school, that you'd have to find a budget for for this in order to put it in? Because
For
you want people to come.
As far as FBAs, we really haven't had to include anything budget-wise because we have all that built in. So we would do the plan during the teacher's plan time or find some time for the teacher to sit down with us, and then we have all of those resources built in. And I would guess most schools do as far as FBAs and a school psych, and
Right.
it's just really getting the buy-in from the general education
Yeah.
teachers. But once they buy in, they see that this is reducing the behaviors in my classroom. So absolutely, we'll do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this might be a question for the lady who spoke about programs, but can new schools start doing this, or how does a school start?
I
doing
think they're
this?
full right now as far as new applicants.
Yeah, we've closed it just for because we started out funded by a grant, but now it's part of the budget that Melinda works really hard to get approved through, it's IDEA funds, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we have a certain amount of budget that really pays for us coaches is really what it is. And so where we're at, we're sort of at capacity. So the places that you saw in all of the regions, so in the metro, it's Jeffco, Adam 14, they're closed for coaching, but what you can do is contact us and then we can send teachers there. So I have people that are saying like, oh, we're really struggling with what good instruction looks like from Aurora or from Leadville, and so we're taking those teachers in our model site. So we would go to a class like Emmy's and say, here's some things to look for, but we're not taking any more people right now. It's kind of closed off because we decided to really dig deeper in the places that we are at and really
So they didn't have to incur any costs to have COMAS come in, but our cost is paid for the coaches and their travel time and all of that. So we just kind of maxed out.
Will there be a time whenever new schools can sign on, or?
The quality indicators are on our website, on the CDE autism webpage. So any school can take those quality indicators and start working on their own programs. And we're available to do some limited consultation, but not coaching to the club.
So it seems like you've pretty much developed a very efficient working model. Have you considered or put together a proposal to present a workshop or presentation at the ASA conference here in Denver next July? I think it would be a valuable workshop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just were talking about that at our last advisory meeting, and I think we're putting proposals for looking at what Colorado is doing in terms of autism. And our model, Melinda and I were just at Ocala, the autism conference, and we heard a couple other Portland Rise, they have similar programs, but I think, and another piece, we have a tri-state collaborative with CDE, and so we've worked with some people from Kansas, Nebraska, that are taking the indicators and really looking at our model site, that we're really interested in how to implement this in other states. So I think we are putting together something to kind of share this piece. I know our SSN people are going to be talking at the CEC, right? Our CEC about their transition programs. They use the indicators and sort of the model program too, but I think we're looking at that and how to get that information out to people.
So I have one more question. In this program, in this program, do you also have a peer mentoring piece? Do you have any kind of guidelines for that?
So it really depends on the, just gonna yell, and then I'll let Amy talk. It really depends on the school. We really try for that piece, and in the indicators, you'll look at that. There's a big general ed component. There's a social, a peer support. One of the things we look at is peer mediated instruction too. So that's an indicator under the domains. It really looks different from each school, but we try to support that. We have some outstanding. I'll talk about Mortensen again because they have an outstanding peer mentoring program, but it really sort of depends on the school. Some people are really great at it. Some people, a couple of my middle schools, we are just starting to get it off the ground because the school culture maybe hasn't been set up for that before. This is sort of new. So we're starting with just sort of ground level. But I think Emmy probably has.
It was
good
definitely a part of the indicators. Prior to us becoming a responsive classroom school, we were doing a lot more in the classroom. We were having lunch bunches where each kid was inviting kids, and we were doing games, activities, lunch. And that's where we were meeting that piece, but also trying to get some of that peer support built into the classroom to where the support is coming from a peer and not a para, because that would be what we can follow through with through the years, instead of having an adult just sit over there and hover over them. We are really trying to build support for the peers. With responsive classroom, since we become a responsive classroom school, that's increased tenfold just because it's the expected classroom environment. And with the morning meetings where each morning they're greeting their peers, they're doing an activity, then that's really built it in where it's a guaranteed 45 minutes a day of structured peer interaction. And then that has built the support through the classroom.
We have an online question. Are you in contact with SWIFT schools or other states like New Hampshire that, sorry, a little pop-up just came in, I can't read it, that already that have high quality programs in place? No.
No, we really use our indicators because that really spells out what is quality programming with enough flexibility to meet teams where they're at. And so that's really our guiding document, that we're really hitting all those domains about what we know is best practice for students with autism. So we're kind of creating those.
So speaking to indicators, does this include services post-secondary or transition, life after high school, 18 to 21-year-old services, social graduation? Is that talked about here at your school too?
There's a limited piece about transition. Our SSN cohort is, can I say this? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I know, Melinda's like ready to hit. It has developed, and I'm just talking about this because I'm love transition, but it's in address, there's a transition domain, but it's not super specific, but it really is looking at IEPs that we have nice transition plans and goals. Our SSN team has just created transition specific indicators, which I think will be a nice, maybe in the future, guide for us to do our own, because we know that's a specific set too. We're also really working with our preschool teachers on thinking about transition, and that's sort of a nice area in the indicators that we're starting early. But I think right now it's not specific, but we're probably might be moving towards that.
So at your site level at 14, when in the IEPs, we're supposed to be starting to think about transitions.
Yeah, we're starting to think about transition pretty early. We've had a couple instances where parents have wanted to hold their kids back and retain them, and we've had those difficult conversations of, your child is going to need these services, 18 to 21. These are more important to us than repeating 4th grade again. So we have had those conversations, and it's definitely in the junior high and high school ages as well.
More people to talk.
But I'd like to tell you about where we started and how I landed where I'm at and where we're at today, because it is night and day difference, and it's very exciting. When I took the job, I had my arm twisted behind my back by my administrator. She had watched me in the classroom as an itinerant teacher, and she felt like that I might make a good teacher in this separate classroom. And when you're itinerant, you have that little bit of freedom. So I was a little bit leery of doing that, but I finally agreed. and walked into this classroom with people that had been in the classroom for years and years and years and years and years and had excellent skills, and I felt like a fish out of water. But as I looked around the classroom, I knew in my heart that there were things that needed to change. You can't do it the way you've always done it without looking at what's happening in the world and what research is telling us needs to happen. So in my classroom, we had a section that was for the speech therapist to do one-on-one therapy. Now, you have to remember that these children were separate from the general ed classroom. So they got their one-on-one therapy in the STAR area. And I have this beautiful, beautiful motor area where my occupational therapist worked with the children when she was in my classroom. And other than that, I was a little bit free to do what I felt like I needed to do. And one of the incidences that comes to mind my first year is when we came in from outside and I requested that the children wash their hands before they sat down to snack. And the people, I had 2 paraprofessionals, looked at me and said, "Oh no, we don't wash our hands. That's a sensory issue for our children. And we'll get the baby wipes out and wipe off their hands." And I went like, "Oh no. No, this is not really happening. We are going to wash our hands if it takes us a couple years to learn how to do it. We've got 2 years with most of our kiddos." And so we worked on those through the first year. And then there was, my school is awesome. It's a beautiful new site in Jefferson County. And we have 4 classrooms and they all have colors. And we were the purple classroom over in the corner. And when my parents walked in, and I'm not kidding, they walked in with their heads down so that no one would see them. This is heartbreaking. And I thought, this is really bizarre. So when I sent my children into the general ed classroom, I had to send them with one of my paras. And if they were good, they got to stay. And if they weren't so good, they came back to our classroom. Well, how do you teach children how to be good if they have to come back? And we were setting up their behaviors. So that was my first year. And somewhere in this year, I heard about this COMES project. And I was like the nag you've never seen with my administrator. You put me in this classroom, and now we have this opportunity to change things, and I better get it. And I think once a week in the summer, I either emailed her or called her if I knew she was at work. Don't forget me. Don't forget about our classroom. This is what we need here. We've got to do something to benefit these children. So in comes Kate and Brooke, and we have these meetings, and we get this all set up, and we are in our 4th year. So I want to say 2010, and that's where we started. Now today, I have to tell you that when my children are integrated into our general ed classrooms, they go by themselves. They are walked down with a peer. A peer will come to get them, and then they walk down, of course, with an adult and a peer. My parents get their newsletters online like all the other parents do. Last year, I had a parent that was one of the most active parents in school. We participate in all of the outside activities as we can. We have visuals all over the place. Our lesson plans are all done with visual directions for both the children and our paraprofessionals. No longer do we have the STAR Center, and our motor area is set up with a pretend play component because the curriculum we use, Tools of the Mind, has a huge play component to it. And so our motor area, we try to get those balls become horses, and there's dress-up clothes. And the children wash their hands often, and they actually use a visual to get there. So we have all of these supports in place, and just really wonderful things going on for children. And I've built a really good relationship with our ASD or SSN classrooms, as we call them now. And the children transition, and the teachers come in to observe the children in our classroom so they know what they're looking at when they come to their classroom. One of the other benefits, I think, is that we're held to a higher standard now because we did make model status. We had staff turnovers, staff retire, but we did it at the end of last year. It took us our full 3 years to get there. And it's the knowing the quality indicators are there, knowing that Kate will come back and do more quality indicators, and it's needing to keep that status up. And since I'm a little bit of a person that needs to keep up with what's going on in the world, it keeps me on my toes, and it keeps me pushing the people that I work with to stay at that model status and help benefit our parents and our children. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with COMAS. Questions? Okay. Well, thank you all for listening to me, because I feel pretty passionate, and Kate kind of feeds that in us. And I think it's great for all the schools. We've had tons of visitors. So that's another reason to keep up the good work.
Interventionist. So thinking about that, in your model classroom, what are those kids that make that really easy transition? What are those things that you can tell the interventionists worked on prior coming into the classroom so that these kids just hit the ground running the minute they get into your classroom?
What I really like to see if they were working with an early interventionist is, right now, it would be the use of visuals, because sometimes that's really new for the children, and then their schedules and routines. Once we settle into that routine, it's so helpful for the children to know that this is what's coming up next, and this is where I'm going next, and this is what I need to do. Also, I'd like to see the children coming in come and visit our program so that parents get to know us and know what we're going to have available for them. That doesn't always happen, because over the summer, a lot of children are going through their transition meetings. I think that's it. And I would really like to have the opportunity to speak with parents so that parents really did know who was going to be working with their children. Okay, thank you all.
Okay, looks like we're just about right on time to get out of here at noon. I hope you'll join